This is a video to demonstrate a seaming method, which is in this book here. It's Japanese, Basic of Tunisian Crochet for Beginners. This is a fabulous book. There's a whole chapter on different kinds of seams. I highly recommend having this book if you are planning to do lots of seaming in your work. This here is my swatch for my Tunisian T Tee. And I'm just going to demonstrate the seaming method, which is the one that I used on the shoulder seams when I joined the front to the back. So on my shoulder seams, both the front and the back at the end had the bind off row done just like this. This is a slip stitch bind off row. Actually, that's my starting chain, and this is the slip stitch bind off row. So you can do this when you're joining two bind off rows together, which is what you do on the tee, but you can use exactly the same method if you wanted to do something like this. So I'm just demonstrating this as a tube. So it has the starting chain from the foundation row and a slip stitch bind off row. So the method applies to both. Now I'm using the pink yarn just so that you can see my stitches, and you'll see how subtle it is when it's done. So there is a bit of a rippling in here. And I actually recommend that you use the same colour. So if you were using this last row as grey, then use the grey to do your stitches. I haven't actually started this off here, but you should. Just connect it to any point. You can weave that end in later, and then you start this method. And it's quite simple. There's just two parts that you need to do. So the main thing is that you want matching stitches to match up. If you don't match them up, you'll end up with, you know, a bit of a gap, or they won't line up properly. So that's the number one thing. And on the bottom, what you do is you put your hook underneath the vertical bar here and directly under this loop here, which is one of the starting chains. Okay. And then on the other side, it's the opposite. So it's through the front loop of the SC bind off here and underneath the vertical bar. And you can work loosely. You don't need to pull it. So I'm going to work loosely for a couple of stitches, and then I'll pull it and you can see the effect. So through the vertical bar and the chain, and then the chain and the vertical bar. Front loops only. Getting caught up with that little loop that's hanging there. See, it's quite loose there. So I'll work a bit more naturally so that you can see how straightforward it is. Okay, so you can see it's like a ladder in there. Now if you grab onto this bit where it's tighter and then pull here gently, so that it's pulling each of those along. So you can do the whole seam and then pull it at the end. It's nice and neat, and it sits flat